Welcome back to Business 110. Today we're talking about Chapter 8, adapting or changing different organization or organizational design. So there's tons of research, tons of books on this, but let's hit some of the highlights. Historically, two folks in the organizational design, and you got to think back to the 1900s when, lots of labor and lots of unskilled labor, because remember, a lot of immigrants to America from Europe at the time that struggled with the language. So Foyle was one of the first one that said, it's important that everybody report to one and only one person because they needed a lot of direction and they needed a lot of, exactly what to do. Remember, this is the production area, big production. Weber was the second person that came along that said, everybody not doesn't have to have a supervisor. They also need to have a specific description of what their job is. All of these were tools in the early organizational design so that people understood what their role was in a big organization. Then we talk about types of organization. You can be a very centralized, where the decisions are made in a central location, normally by high-level management. The advantage to that is there's very little deviation to what management wants to do. The disadvantage of a centralized management is the centralized people tend to be way away from the customer, and sometimes it's good to give some flexibility to employees based on what the situation is. Decentralized management is where more decisions are made at lower levels, people that are closer to the customer. The advantage there is they're closer to the customer, so hopefully they're making more informed decisions. The disadvantage is you may have inconsistencies all over the place. The guy in region A may not make the same decision as the guy or gal in region B. Tall organization, lots of layers of management, a very flat organization, very few layers. Departmentalization is where you have different departments and functions. Line tends to be folks that work directly for the customer, like a production line, like the sales team. Staff tends to be what's called back office. They support the line folks so your human resources folks, your law office, all important staff functions to a business, but they tend not to be working for the end customer. They tend to be supporting the line folks. Matrix organizations have come into play in the last 50 years. That's where sometimes folks support two different functions. Lots of different ways you can organize. Most people organize around what's best for the customer. You can organize by product line like the auto industry. You can organize by function, which most manufacturing firms do. By function means, I have a production department, I have a sales department, I have a quality department. I could organize by customer. This tends to work well if you have a few very, very, very large customers. For example, if I was building aircraft carriers and I only had one or two customers like the Navy and the Air Force, I might want to design my organization around specific customer needs. Geographic, all sorts of different ways. The key thing is you want to organize what works well for the customer and to help you maximize your profit levels. Benchmarking is where people take a look at other firms and say, hey, what things are they doing particularly well that we might be able to incorporate into ours? Core competencies has come into play as people have been outsourcing things. Core competencies are, what are the things that my business does that differentiates me from other folks? And then what are some things that are not core competencies that anybody could do? So maybe the payroll is not my core competency in my business, so I might outsource the payroll function to somebody else so I can focus more time on what my core competencies are. And then adapting to change. These things are always going to change, and you've got to be willing to adapt to change. That's Chapter 8. Have a good week. Any questions, let me know.